Warm.
Brie sees your eyes.
We open on a quiet morning at an old convent tucked into the hills of Garfagnana, Italy. The year is 1347, already a terrible time to be alive. We meet two nuns, Sister Genevra and Sister Fernanda. Fernanda just returned from the woods. She says she had to chase a runaway donkey.
Oh, why do you care about the donkey so much?
It just doesn't make any sense.
A man named Lurko, the convent's groundskeeper, walks past and greets them with a perfectly harmless smile, which they respond to by absolutely dismantling him, verbally.
Beautiful morning, sister.
Hey, don't fucking talk to us! I told you to never talk to us! I'm looking at you!
To know thy will.
Later that afternoon, the sisters gather in the chapel for a reading from Father Tommaso. After the service, the abbess pulls Fernanda aside about her morning absence. Same donkey. Same story. The abbess finds it slightly suspicious, but lets it go. Meanwhile, in her room, we find Sister Alessandra quietly embroidering, staring out the window with the expression of someone mentally calculating how many years they have left in this place. Alessandra is the daughter of a wealthy merchant who essentially donated her to the convent in exchange for a generous financial contribution. Her heart never quite arrived here. It stayed somewhere outside these walls, with a man named Riccardo. Being placed somewhere you didn't choose and then being expected to flourish there, that's less a spiritual calling and more a scheduling conflict with your entire life. The next morning, Fernanda, Genevra, and Alessandra are walking through the garden with two large baskets. When they cross paths with Lurko tending to his flowers,
Why are you making eye contact with us? Look at the crap, you fucking pervert!
they destroy the flowers and whatever remained of his dignity. Poor Lurko. And that's when Lurko reaches his limit. While Father Tommaso prepares to leave for the city to sell the sisters' embroidered cloth, Lurko shows up to say goodbye. He's done. Tommaso tries to reason with him. Lurko has made his peace. He walks away from the convent and doesn't look back.
Please.
A man choosing unemployment over psychological warfare, objectively rational. We cut to a grand castle in Lunigiana, where a nobleman named Lord Bruno is having lunch with his wife, Lady Francesca. Francesca is not particularly focused on lunch because her eyes keep drifting toward one of the household servants, Massetto. Isn't the way you look at someone who just refilled your water glass. Lord Bruno keeps several male servants in his household, a fact Lady Francesca has quietly taken full advantage of for her own private purposes. That night, it's Massetto's turn to keep Francesca company, and from the look on his face, this was not a voluntary enrollment. Reluctant or not, they end up in bed together. Because that was always where this was going. Unfortunately, right in the middle of exactly that,
What have you done?
Lord Bruno walks in. Massetto, operating entirely on instinct now, is out the window before his brain finishes processing the situation. Gone.
Is it Florence? Are they coming? Go get them.
Lord Bruno catches a glimpse. Just the back. No face. No name. Massetto slips into the servants' quarters. When Lord Bruno comes to investigate, every servant has long hair. Massetto is already pretending to be deeply, peacefully asleep. The sleeping performance was probably more convincing than anything else he did that evening. So Lord Bruno does the reasonable thing. He orders all male servants to have their heads shaved, which backfires immediately because removing Massetto's hair only makes him more noticeable. Lady Francesca can barely look at her food at the next meal. Some men look fine with a shaved head. Some men look considerably better. Massetto, unfortunately for everyone involved, belongs to the second group. Lord Bruno did not think this through. Then, under the influence of something she absolutely should not have been drinking at noon, Lady Francesca corners Massetto in the back garden. Lord Bruno sees all of it from the upper floor. He's furious. He orders two guards to seize Massetto immediately. But Massetto is faster. He
Ia
disappears
berhasil
into the
kabur
forest
masuk
and
ke
the
dalam
guards
hutan.
lose him completely. Where does a man with no plan, no allies, and a very specific set of recent problems go from here? Drop your prediction below. I'm genuinely curious how many of you saw a convent coming. Running through the woods, Massetto stumbles across Father Tommaso, who is having what can only be described as the worst afternoon of his professional life. The embroidered cloth he was supposed to sell in the city has fallen into a river. Massetto, to his credit, actually helps. He jumps in, recovers most of the cloth, and saves what he can. Father Tommaso is genuinely grateful. He offers Massetto a place to stay at the convent for the night.
Fresh bread for you.
That evening, Massetto makes his confession. He tells Father Tommaso that he has repeatedly, and with some degree of reluctance, been involved in activities with his employer's wife that fall well outside the scope of his job description. In his defense, he did say reluctantly, which is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Father Tommaso listens patiently and quickly understands that Massetto is in real danger. Lord Bruno could have him arrested at any moment. So, a plan forms. Massetto will work at the convent as Lurko's replacement, but there's one critical condition: he must pretend to be completely deaf and mute the entire time. The reasoning? The sisters have a certain temperature. Lurko's departure is all the evidence needed. There's something quietly impressive about a plan built entirely on a man's ability to stay silent around people who are going to make that nearly impossible. The next morning, Father Tommaso introduces Massetto to the abbess. The story: Massetto is a deaf mute he encountered on the road, skilled in carpentry and groundskeeping, a practical replacement for Lurko. The abbess accepts. The sisters, however, react differently. Sister Fernanda, the most volatile of the group, immediately approaches Massetto with an axe in hand.
I don't know. Who the fuck are you?
Tell me who you are.
Who are you? Fernanda, stop! What are you doing with your hands? The fuck are you saying to me?
Accusing him of being a spy. Very on brand.
Don't chop his head off!
All right.
You can get up now!
Sister Alessandra, on the other hand, looks at him the way you look at something unexpected that you're not entirely sure what to do with, but you're definitely not walking away from. It was not a spiritual gaze. We can leave it there. After things settle, Massetto begins his duties as groundskeeper, and it doesn't take long for certain sisters to start paying a very different kind of attention to the new deaf-mute gardener. If you were Massetto, surrounded by volatile nuns, pretending to be deaf, how long do you realistically last? Drop your number below. Be honest. Massetto wasn't, and look how that turned out. One afternoon, the wooden frame Alessandra uses for embroidering snaps at one end. She goes to the storage shed to ask Massetto to fix it. Sister Genevra, working nearby in the garden, quietly notices Alessandra going into the shed alone. She says nothing, but she notices. Inside the shed, Alessandra, still fully believing Massetto can't hear a word, starts talking. Really talking. About being trapped here, about wanting a life that actually feels like one, about wanting things that evening prayers and embroidery thread simply cannot provide. There's a specific kind of loneliness in performing a version of your life for an audience that never once asked whether you were okay with any of it. Massetto listens. In complete, technically required silence. When Alessandra leaves with her repaired frame, Fernanda and Genevra are standing outside, waiting. That evening, Father Tommaso checks in with Massetto, asks how the work is going. Massetto gestures enthusiastically. Going great, very comfortable. The sisters are wonderful company. Father Tommaso gently reminds him to maintain a professional distance. Don't complicate things. The advice was sound. The timing, unfortunately, was not. Later that night, an old friend of Sister Fernanda shows up at the convent Marta. Fernanda brings her to Alessandra's room, then produces 2 bottles of wine stolen directly from Father Tommaso's personal supply. And so begins what is objectively the least appropriate evening in this convent's history. They drink, they laugh, they drink considerably more. At some point, Marta leans in and asks with genuine curiosity whether any of them have ever actually been with a man. Silence. Then Marta elaborates, in detail, with enthusiasm. Marta did not come to this convent to make friends. She came to cause a very specific kind of damage. The noise wakes Sister Genevra, who knocks on the door with the energy of someone who needs this to stop immediately. Instead of being turned away, she gets pulled inside and handed a glass.
Woo! It's fine. No, 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 no.
As the night progresses and the wine runs low, things move well past any reasonable boundary.
This is too tight.
The evening ends with Fernanda carrying a thoroughly drunk Genevra back to her room and continuing the night there. Of these three, Fernanda, Alessandra, Genevra, who's actually running this operation? Be specific. Vague answers will be judged accordingly. The next afternoon, Alessandra finds Massetto in the garden and brings him a handkerchief she embroidered herself. Things start warmly, casually. Then the afternoon heat picks up. Alessandra removes her veil. Her hair falls loose. She looks at him. And that's where restraint ends.
Sorry.
The chapel bell ends it. Because of course it does.
We praise you. We bless you.
After prayers, Fernanda and Genevra are doing laundry. Genevra brings up the previous night. Fernanda responds with the composure of someone who has decided that conversation simply isn't happening. Then Alessandra shows up with a suspiciously dirty veil she needs washed. Genevra raises an eyebrow. Alessandra explains she got it dirty helping Massetto dig irrigation channels in the garden. Irrigation channels, absolutely.
Bye, you guys. Bye.
Fernanda hears this and immediately goes to find Marta. She asks for a specific herbal preparation drops made from a plant Marta brews carefully, with one very clear warning: do not drink this. From a distance, Genevra watches all of it, says nothing. Afterward, Fernanda and Marta, in a noticeably elevated state, make their way to the storage shed to find Massetto. Massetto was not expecting two of them. See, inside the shed, Marta holds a knife to Massetto's throat and instructs him to maintain eye contact with Fernanda while the situation develops.
Make sure he sees your eyes.
Massetto obliges. His expression suggests he's filed this somewhere in the complicated column.
NANI?
When they emerge, Genevra is standing outside. She followed them, but she didn't see what happened inside, which was probably better for everyone's long-term spiritual health. That evening, Father Tommaso sits with Massetto again. Massetto, through gestures, communicates that things are going very, very well. Father Tommaso nods, thoroughly unaware of everything. Then knock knock. The abbess is at the door. She steps inside. The most complicated relationships are always the ones everyone has silently agreed not to discuss. The next morning, Massetto, now considerably bolder, climbs through Alessandra's window to pick up where they left off. An elderly sister walks in to continue her embroidery work. Massetto panics and speaks. Out loud, actual words. The deaf-mute act has officially retired. Alessandra stares at him. The elderly sister is nearly blind and registers nothing. Massetto escapes through the window. Meanwhile, the convent receives an important visitor, Bishop Bartolomeo, arriving to review the financial records. And something in the February accounts doesn't add up. The numbers on the embroidery sales are off. Church money missing. The scandal stack grows taller. At the same time, Genevra walks into the abbess's office and quietly starts reporting that something is wrong with Sister Fernanda's behavior ever since Marta started visiting. Massetto just blew his cover. The bishop is auditing the books. Genevra is talking to the abbess. Everything is moving toward collapse at exactly the same time. Who gets caught first? Drop your pick below. Points will not be awarded, but I will remember who was right. Massetto, now in the shed, gets confronted by Alessandra, who wants a real explanation. Why the act?
No. What's going on?
Why the silence this whole time? Elsewhere, Genevra, having watched Marta prepare the herbal drops for Fernanda, decides she wants to try it herself. She finds the plant. She brews it exactly as she saw. But instead of applying it to her eyes, she drinks it. Genevra watched Marta follow the instructions very carefully. Then she ignored the most important one. This is, historically, how most things go wrong. Genevra stops being someone who thinks about consequences. She walks straight to the shed. Alessandra, catching on fast, and Genevra, with absolutely zero hesitation, pulls Massetto in and kisses him. No greeting, no warning, just that. But then she stops, pulls back, looks at him for a moment, and quietly announces that she has, in this moment of absolute chemical clarity, realized she prefers women. Alessandra, hidden behind a pile of hay, watches all of this with her mouth open. Then more footsteps.
What are you doing here? I'm just looking.
Sister Fernanda arrives, dressed in black, carrying a knife. She ties Massetto's hands, covers his eyes, and leads him into the forest. Genevra and Alessandra, both now running on belladonna and adrenaline, follow Fernanda silently into the trees. What they find stops them completely. A group of women wearing nothing at all, dancing around a bonfire. Massetto is lying on a stone altar, bound at the wrists and ankles. Fernanda and Marta stand beside him.
It's okay.
Turns out, Fernanda and Marta have been part of a pagan fertility cult this entire time. And tonight, Massetto is the offering. He survived a jealous lord, a window escape, a river rescue, and a convent full of chaos, only to end up on a literal sacrificial altar. Massetto's journey is not for the faint of heart. Genevra, now fully committed to wherever the belladonna is taking her steps out from the trees, removes every piece of clothing she's wearing and joins the dancing circle without a second thought. Marta raises the knife above Massetto's chest, and then
Don't fucking kill me, so don't, please don't fucking kill me.
Genevra is spotted.
What is she doing here?
The ritual collapses. Focus breaks. Marta drops her position to deal with the intruder. In the chaos, Alessandra runs to Fernanda, trying to reach her, bring her back, make her stop. Genevra wins the fight. She takes Marta's robe. Marta is left in the forest with nothing. In a way, Marta did not see coming. Who was the actual MVP tonight? Alessandra for keeping her head and saving Massetto? Or Genevra for accidentally dismantling a pagan ritual while high? Also, where has that donkey been this entire time? I have been thinking about this longer than I should have. Drop your answers below. The donkey question is not optional. But the night isn't finished. Genevra, still not entirely inhabiting her body, stumbles back to the convent at midnight and starts screaming. Not quietly, screaming, waking every single person in the building, including the bishop, who did not agree to any of this.
What are you doing? It's the middle of it. Calm down.
Standing before Bishop Bartolomeo, Genevra tells him everything. Alessandra and Massetto, Fernanda and the ritual in the woods, every corner of every secret that has been living inside these walls. All of it. The bishop's reaction is, predictably, not good. He goes directly to the abbess's quarters to report.
Wake up. Complete chaos.
Massetto speaks up, out loud,
I can explain everything, all right?
which immediately raises the question of why the deaf-mute groundskeeper has been capable of speech this entire time, which then triggers the discovery that nothing here has been what it appeared to be. And this is where it gets even crazier. Yeah, Father Tommaso literally just walks out of the abbess's room. Bro.
It's a miracle.
The evening has reached its natural conclusion. Be honest, did you see the abbess and Father Tommaso coming? Type called it or didn't see that in the comments. No judgment, mostly. The next morning, Bishop Bartolomeo convenes the formal proceedings. His ruling, Father Tommaso is stripped of his clerical title and expelled from the convent. His religious career finished. The four sisters, the abbess, Fernanda, Alessandra, and Genevra, are permitted to remain, but they are sent sentenced to
menjalani
1
puasa
full year of
selama
fasting
setahun
and
dan
demonstrated
menunjukkan sifat
repentance.
perdob-
And Massetto,
dan
he is
menunjukkan
escorted
sifat
back to
pertobatan
Lord Bruno's
yang
castle
sungguh-sungguh.
and placed in
Sedangkan
the
Yono,
dungeon
ia
to
dibawa
await
kembali lagi ke
sentencing.
kastil
The bishop
Lord
has
Bruno
ruled Massetto
dan
is in a
dilempar
cell. The
penjara bawah
sisters are
tanah
on a
untuk
year-long
menunggu
fast. Does this
hukumannya.
feel like an ending to you? Drop your prediction below before the finale proves you wrong or right. Occasionally, these things work out.
What the hell are you doing?
As I see the dry months come, and the blossoms look like those of apples.
Same thing yesterday. I would even be okay if they I don't know what's going on with you.
It doesn't end there. That same night, 3 of them, Alessandra, Genevra, and Fernanda, quietly slip out of the convent and break into Lord Bruno's castle. They talk their way past 2 guards in a manner the film doesn't feel the need to elaborate on, find the dungeon, and walk Massetto out. Elsewhere, the abbess quietly leads her donkey out through a side gate and walks to a nearby bridge. Father Tommaso is already there. He tells her he's been staying at a Buddhist monastery. Extremely boring, apparently. She tells him the convent hasn't felt right since he left. They stand together on the bridge. The donkey is there. The future is uncertain, and none of the math adds up. And the film ends. Most stories want to give you resolution, a clean loop, a reason to feel like the chaos meant something. This one doesn't. And somehow that feels more honest than the alternative. And that's The Little Hours. Now look, I'm not going to stand here and tell you this film is a profound meditation on the human condition. It's a movie where a guy pretends to be deaf so nuns won't yell at him, and it somehow ends with a fertility cult. The bar for profundity is not particularly high. But here's the thing, every single person in this film is performing a version of themselves they didn't choose. The nuns perform holiness, the priest performs celibacy, Massetto performs deafness, and the institution around them keeps running, collecting donations, scheduling prayers, maintaining the appearance of order while everyone inside is quietly losing their mind, trying to be the person the institution requires them to be. And the film never really punishes them for it, not morally anyway. The bishop shows up, delivers his rulings, and leaves satisfied that order has been restored. Except the nuns break Massetto out of prison that same night. The abbess is already at the bridge. The donkey is involved somehow. Institutional authority, 0. Chaos, comfortable lead. I think what the film is actually doing quietly, under all the comedy, is asking a fairly simple question. What happens when the life you were assigned doesn't fit the person you actually are? Most institutions answer that with, try harder, pray more, fast for a year. The film answers differently, with a donkey, a bonfire, and 3 nuns who decided that some rules are less permanent than they look, which isn't a lesson exactly. It's more of an observation, the kind that stays with you a little longer than it probably should. Oscar, my cat, watched part of this with me. He seemed unbothered, which honestly tracks. Anyway, if you have thoughts on what this film was really going for, drop them below. I'm genuinely curious what you picked up that I didn't. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell, and if you know someone who takes their period comedy seriously, which is a very specific kind of person, send this their way. See you in the next one.